doing this.
As soon as the recording started, everybody got very quiet. Nobody wants to be on record now. Chrissy, are we going to do any introductions, or I mean, are we have the invite?
Yeah,
okay.
I'll do it. Yeah, yeah.
But we don't have to like introduce ourselves or anything. You're going to do all of that.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. For those of you who signed on so far, we're just going to give it a couple more minutes just to make sure everything's everyone's got time to join in.
Chrissy, I think we're good to get started.
Okay. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for zooming in. On behalf of the Professional Women in Construction, the New Jersey chapter, we'd like to welcome you to our panel discussion about diversity. I am Chrissy Ruffalo, the moderator today and president of PWC, and I'm an engineer and project manager for Jingoli Construction, DCO Energy. And this is my first time moderating, so wish me luck. Before we get started with our huge lineup of panelists, I just want to share with you a little bit about our PWC organization. Our mission statement is Professional Women in Construction. We support, advance, and connect women and promote diversity within the architecture, engineering, construction, and related industries. We are a community of professionals in the AEC industry that provides an opportunity for connection and engagement that leads to business opportunities. We invite men, women, and all levels of professionals to join our community. Before we begin, I just want to lay out the format. We'll have a panel discussion between the 5 panelists and myself, and then a Q&A session at the end. So I encourage all viewers to write down questions along the way in the Q&A section of the Zoom app, because after we're done, I'm going to be asking Margot Chwanski of HC Constructors to join us and ask the panelists questions that you, the viewers, were asking along the way. So please use the Q&A section of Zoom for that. So grab a cup of coffee and we're about to begin. So let's meet our panelists. Today we have Liz Duncan Gilmore. Liz is the General Counsel and Director at the Minority Business Development Institute. This organization, founded in 2010, is a nonprofit that supports the growth and prosperity of traditionally underrepresented people in the construction arena. They address financial and operational barriers and seek to shift institutional bias and discrimination. The Institute's goal is to provide a path to the middle class and create opportunities for generational wealth among diverse business owners and their families. She has mentored over 450 families, and her organization is focused to prepare project-ready firms within their 9-month programs. Liz is the organization's public face, delivering speeches, writing articles, and making presentations, and has been key to building the Institute into what it is today. Wave, Liz, I think you did already. Robert Dennis. Robert is the Senior Contract Administrator at Princeton University. Robert has been with the Princeton University for the past 11 years, where he started out as an entry-level contract administrator. Since those times, Robert has risen to senior level and has overseen Princeton's East Campus redevelopment, geo-exchange energy plant, renovation and expansion of a historic building, and a new neighborhood for future buildings. Robert created Princeton's Facility Supplier Diversity Program, which he has helped grow Princeton's pool of diverse suppliers for design and construction projects. He holds professional certificates in supply management and supplier diversity and has an MBA. Give a little wave, Rob. There you go. Marisol Ramirez. Marisol is the supplier diversity manager at Public Service Enterprise Group. Marisol joined PSEG in 2014 as supervisor to the Accounts Payable Group. In 2019, she was promoted to Supplier Diversity Manager. Her impressive list of accolades is leader for PSEG's Procurement Local Inclusion Team, Vice Chair and Membership Trustee for the Adelante Employment Resource Group, and member of PSEG's Pride, Able, Balance, and Women's Network Employee Business Groups. She serves as VP of the NJ BPU Supplier Diversity Development Council and was recently appointed as board member of New York, New Jersey's Minority Supplier Development Council. She was also recognized as a 2020 Top 25 Women Empower Impacting Diversity. I'd certainly say so. And she's on the board of many local community organizations and hospitals. So Marisol, give a wave. Excellent. Karen Sweeney. Karen is Senior Vice President, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Community at Turner Construction. She's been with Turner since 1980. She worked her way through the ranks within Turner from a field engineer to become Turner's first woman to head a Turner office. Pretty awesome. And she was the VP and general manager for them in Ohio and then in Maryland. In 2009, she started her focused work in D&I by becoming their Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion. 6 years later, she was promoted to her current position as Senior VP of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Community, where she leads Turner's internal initiatives as well as their external programs. A key focus of hers is diverse recruiting, onboarding, and career development internally within Turner. And externally, she focuses on mentoring, educational outreach, and youth engagement programs. And last but not least, Michelle Bowden. Michelle is the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer at New Jersey Economic Development Authority. Michelle has been with the NJEDA since 2020, when they created this position for her to join them and continue her long history of driving diversity and inclusion strategies. Her role is to lead the efforts to cultivate equality and inclusiveness, both within the organization, as well as through the resources that NJEDA provides to the state. Before joining the NJEDA, she led a supplier diversity program for Allied Universal and led a program that helped advance the success of women-owned enterprises during her tenure at the Women Presidents Educational Organization. She has also owned her own consulting firm. She's a certified diversity professional and is enrolled at the Cultural Diversity Executive Program at the Diversity Executive Leadership Academy. That's a mouthful. Give a little wave, Michelle. And you're on mute, just so you know. So let's give our 5 panelists a very warm welcome. I very much appreciate, on behalf of PWC, you guys being here today with us. And now we're going to be on to the discussions. Okay, so here we go. Here's the first one. What does diversity inclusion mean to you? Michelle, how about you? You want to tell us your thoughts on that?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I was having a bit of a technical issue. I'm in the office today, which is, a little different for us. We're just back to being back in the offices. So you would think that the office would be constructed for us to, to be live, but we've gotten so accustomed to being at home. So I apologize for that, but I think I'm okay now. Great question, and thank you so much for having me. I think that, we know the textbook definition of diversity and inclusion. We know that diversity means those differences that seen and unseen, that can include race and gender and our religion and sexual orientation, and for us as a public entity, political affiliation, right? So we know about that, but we know that inclusion is really supposed to be the extent to which someone feels that those differences are valued, and recognized. But I like to take it a step further, because we here at EDA are responsible as a public agency to have an obligation to produce programs and services that are reflective of the communities and the businesses that we serve here in New Jersey. So I like to say that we here at EDA are diverse on purpose, because not only do we have to recognize those diverse backgrounds and demographics, but those backgrounds and those demographics have to be valued and embraced to the point where we are nurturing a workforce that is poised and resilient and responsive and effective to the public, because we have that responsibility to provide those programs and those services, like I said, that are reflective of the communities that we serve in New Jersey.
Excellent. Marisol, what's your take on what does diversity and inclusion mean to you?
Well, thank you for having me. Michelle, you and I share a lot of commonality in what diversity and inclusion means. It's interesting. You call it diversity with purpose. I say what I do is procurement with purpose, right?
That's right.
It's very critical for our supplier base to be representative of the communities we serve, right? And not only our diverse suppliers, but our workforce. I've heard an analogy before, which really makes it clear as to what diversity and inclusion means to me, right? They say diversity is being invited to the party, right? But inclusion is being asked to dance. So I live by that principle, because everyone deserves to be invited, and everyone definitely should be on the dance floor. So I live with that principle in everything that I do.
That's excellent. Wow, I like that. Rob, how about you? What does diversity and inclusion mean to you?
Thanks. It's hard to build off those two. To take a little bit different perspective, and you're going to probably hear this theme a lot, but being in higher education at Princeton, we're all about education, and I think a lot of what we do at the university, and specifically in our facilities department, is continuing education. So continuing to grow and develop and learn. It's something that we've been working on for years now. Our diversity and inclusion program, our business strategy in our facilities department. So I think what we think about it is really focusing on continuing education and learning more about identity and inclusion and equity and social justice on a daily basis, year after year, to continue to just learn as we go along. We really try to cultivate a strong sense of community with our students, our staff, our faculty. And I think, like Marisol said, reflecting on your community, and trying to match sort of their diverse status is something that we try to echo in our supplier base as well.
Excellent. Karen, how about you? What does diversity and inclusion mean to you?
There's so much there. I mean, to me, it's, this is all a journey. We can put programs and initiatives out there, but it really is an evolution. We started with diversity awareness training, back in the 90s and early 2000s, and everybody went through it. When I came into the position, I added inclusion, because I found in my own career that in the beginning and in the middle part of my career, there was all kinds of mentoring and help. We want you to be successful. And then when I became a GM, suddenly became the loneliest job I ever had. and I would like ask for advice from some of my peers, and they'd be like, you can't ask that. That's that could be perceived as a sign of weakness. You just got to do it. And so not being a white male, ascension in this company, it was really hard to navigate because I was used to more consensus building and having a team atmosphere, and we decide together and move forward. And so when I took over the role in 2009, and it had been vacant for a couple of years because the woman that had done it before had a marvelous job, she retired, nobody replaced her. I came into the role and I added inclusion because to me, and this is what I say all the time, that diversity, and people all the time would say, well, look at my staff. I have the most diverse, project team. And I'm like, but if they're not feeling like they're part of the team, you have diverse people, but you don't have a team. So my key words were diversity was, can I see myself in the room when I look into that project team? But inclusion is, can I be myself? Can I offer everything that I am and truly be my authentic self? We talk about that all the time, but where does it stop being a buzzword and become actually how you are in this space? And then recently we've added equity to it too, because maybe I can be myself, but do I have the same opportunities? Is that playing field level? So equity is a really important part of our journey going forward, because Rob, to your point, we want to reflect the communities where we build, and we want to mirror what our clients and our communities are when we step into a community and build a project.
Excellent. All right, Liz, your turn.
Thank you. So I want to expand on the equity piece a little bit, because I think the one thing we haven't touched on is how often women, minorities, veterans are put in a position where when they get on a job or when they're hired, there's animosity towards them because they've been given some sort of a favor to get there. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that there's nothing new about that. Nepotism, the old boys network, that's always given a leg up to certain firms, to certain individuals. All we're doing here is expanding the pie, really allowing other people, other faces, people who look different than the traditional people who've been holding these positions, to have the same opportunity that the majority's already had. So I think it's really important to create a mind shift and to acknowledge that, bias is always there. When you're talking about saying, oh, they don't deserve it, they're only getting it because they're Black, they're women, they're Latino, whatever it is, that's really a bias, and you're not looking at how your particular group has benefited from this bias all along.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you for all that. We're going to move on to our next question. So in terms of diversity, what would you like to see in a company seeking to do business with you? So the first kind of part to that is, how does a company get started developing and implementing a diversity inclusion program? So what are the specifics we're kind of looking to kind of focus in on, really helping our audience? So specifics, what does a company getting started need to do to develop a program? So Karen, how about you? Want to take that?
Sure. And again, it's not a one size fits all. We found that out very clearly, and it really depends on your culture. And as you said at the beginning, I had the advantage of being in this water for 30 some years before I even took on this role. So I knew, and I had felt firsthand when I looked behind me in 2009, and I didn't see another woman as a general manager at that point. I knew we had some work to do, but where do you start? What do you do? And every time I move forward with awareness training, it always felt like it was coming at it from a us them perspective. And I really wanted it. How do we all? It's not me. It's not this program this is all of us together. And how do you reach into the organization and really get started? So our pivot point, one of many, was in 2014. I had been at a conference, and there was a speaker that talked about unconscious bias. And I thought, aha, that's a big part of this is how we're all wired. So the how can we deal with this from a fundamental, like we're wired, how do you, not just have awareness of this, but how do you really change behaviors and recognize and change your behavior towards other people. And we actually developed a program where everyone, from the CEO down to new people coming on board, would spend half a day in live learning with somebody outside of Turner to really talk about unconscious bias and give us the tools. We had started talking about creating the right environment at that point, and that was the right environment meant where everybody can be their best selves, do their best work, not be distracted. We talk about physical safety all the time too, but what about psychological when you come to work? Do you feel safe in that environment? So that was really helpful and really kind of turned the tide, because we all had these cards, and we're a company of, everything has another meaning. So the right, was like respect and integrity, and so tying in our corporate values and tools, like what do you do to create that right environment? And then we graduated from there into really looking at equity. And another catalyst was last year, and we had heard from some of our Black colleagues, like, when there was a murder of a Black man at the hands of police, like they would come into work the next day and it was business as usual. Everybody's still doing their job. They were suffering, but they couldn't talk to anybody about that. So when the murder of George Floyd occurred and during the pandemic, that shifted everything. And it's a shame that it takes something so horrendous, but it did. And we have more energy, momentum, focus on not just the diversity and inclusion piece, but equity, social justice, ending racism, both in our, on our job sites, within everything that we do. So again, that's why I go back to, this is a journey. There are specific things and specific actions we did, but it's ongoing. And this will be work for all of us for a really long time, because we have to get this right.
Okay, so Marisol, from your perspective, what do you want to see a company? What is your advice for a company to start their own diversity and inclusion program?
So I look at it in two perspectives, right? I really focus on supplier diversity. However, I have worked with some of our primes to help develop or help them with their supplier diversity program. But I am also involved with the DEI initiatives within our company. So I have like a whole bunch of different focuses that I can talk about. I like to, in terms of supplier diversity, when a company like PSEG is looking to do business with a diverse supplier, we really look at, is the company aligned with what our core values are, right? We have diversity, equity, and inclusion as a core value. We have safety. And do they have the capabilities that we need for them to do business with us? We are very active in our communities on these nonprofits and advocacy groups and organizations, ensuring that there's resources available to allow a diverse supplier to have the programs they need to build capacity if they don't have capacity to work with us. But one of the things I always like to speak with diverse suppliers is make sure that if you're certified, your certifications are current. If you're looking to come in to do business with a big company like PSEG, you may not get that contract directly at first. So look into working as a subcontractor with one of our primes who can help you build that capacity to be able to work with PSEG on a larger scale. And we just developed a supplier development program that we piloted this year with our energy efficiency group because we saw the need, and we developed it with the Rutgers Business School. We saw a need where we would like to mentor at least 4 to 5 suppliers into our program. So by the end of the 6-month program, they have the qualifications they need to be able to get a contract with us directly. So there is an application process for that, and certain qualifications which were developed by the line of business because we did pilot it with our energy efficiency group. But just make sure that all your stuff is in order. If you are a diverse company, make sure that you are certified. I've come across a lot of great companies that we would love to do business with that are minority, women, veteran, service disabled veteran, and LGBTQ+, but they don't have the certifications necessary for us to truly consider them for an opportunity. So I would say make the investment, and especially in the state of New Jersey, they've waived the fee to become certified. So there's no excuse not to get certified right now with the state of New Jersey. And the state of New Jersey will certify you for more than one diversity classification. And if you have more than one, get them all, because you never know when a company's looking for a particular certification that you may have.
Excellent. Rob, how about you? What's Princeton looking for in terms of a D&I program?
Yeah, I'm going to jump off Marisol's last comment just about certification too, because that is very important for us as well. It's how we track our diverse spend. We have to have a certified diverse certificate on file with us when you register a supplier to qualify as a diverse firm at the university. So it is very important. On that same note, it's important to us that firms that do hold diverse certifications meet not only the letter, but also the spirit of it too. We've encountered a couple firms where, they'll have 51% ownership, but there's very little activity, I would say, on the, diverse participant side. And again, although you meet the requirement to be a diverse firm, we want to partner with actual diverse firms that have diverse teams and diverse participation working at the university. It's important for diverse and non-diverse firms. I think that if you have a diverse team, I think like Liz was saying before, we want to make sure that, we don't want to just see a diverse group. We want diverse participation. We want people actually actively involved on projects. We want to see them on campus. We want to see them doing work here. We have had firms that, will throw up a picture and say, look, we're diverse. This is our, our office. But that doesn't really, again, meet the spirit of being a diverse firm. I think it's really important that you have a lot of participation. If you're a diverse firm and if you're a not diverse firm, to have that sort of involvement. Again, the certification is important because that's how we sort of track our actual diverse spend at the university. So that's an important factor. That'd probably be the biggest part about developing a university program. Certification is big. Like Marisol said, is very important and not that prohibitive, I think, anymore to get that certification.
So let's say a company has a certification, or let's just say a company isn't, more than 51% owned. What advice would you give to, a company who doesn't meet those certifications? They still would want a program in place. What kind of advice would you give who wants to take this? What kind of advice would you give for, concrete, how to get a diversity inclusion program up and running in an organization?
Is that directed to me again?
Anyone.
I don't want to.
Go ahead, Rob, you spoke up.
Yeah, I'll say, we're relatively new to this. We've been doing this for about 5 or 6 years, but like Karen, I think said, they were looking at diversity in Turner in the late 90s, early 2000s. So we were a little bit behind the ball. We looked actually to Turner when we started developing our program and some of our other large construction management firms to see what they were doing, because they've been doing this for a lot longer than we have for their own internal purposes, but as well as other clients that they have, especially government entities, I think require more information than Princeton has more recently. So we're relatively new to it, but benchmarking was a big thing. So, the first 2 or 3 years, we were just gathering information because we didn't really know, what our position was as far as how we've been doing, and then establishing goals and identifying, what we are looking to do going forward. And it's ever evolving too. I mean, we're reevaluating it on a quarterly basis to understand, how we can help promote and expand our diverse supplier use in design and construction, as well as just general procurement at the university. So starting somewhere and getting as much data as you can, I think is an important start.
Liz or Michelle, you have any kind of concrete advice for companies on what to do to get started? Go ahead,
I would,
Michelle. Or go ahead, Liz.
no, go ahead, Michelle. I would say it's really important to look within first, right? So if you don't have a DE&I program already at your firm, it's important to do sort of a survey internally and talk about why it is that this hasn't been something that you've looked at yet. Because the only way to get to the bottom of it is to look at it, talk about it, and then move forward. And I think that's a step a lot of firms miss. And then there's not a lot of uptake. And there's got to be uptake. It's got to be systemic change that happens, not just within a DE&I department. And it's really got to come from the top as well.
Yeah, I definitely, I'm on board with that, because just having, when I was at my previous employer, it was much the same. We started the supplier diversity program from the ground up, and then coming over to a public facing agency, things are a bit different in that the public procurement laws are very different. And so, there are barriers, that exist from a public standpoint that may not necessarily exist from a private employer. So I think that, really identifying the environment for which you're in, and, with us, from a public standpoint, we have, legality aspects. We have to have a disparity study, and there's certain things that need to be in place in order to stand up, set-asides and goals. And so from that, we have to sort of work within. We have to have an inside game and an outside game. So not only do we have to establish those priorities internally, but we need to, ensure that externally, we're doing what we need to do to fortify those goals. So, I would say that organizationally, it varies and it changes, but I think that, the commonality and what everyone has just said is that, we start from the top down, and then we spread it out, as it flows throughout the organization. Those are always going to be the same characteristics.
Okay.
So
Can
I'm sorry. Just one thing I want to add that just spoke to me when Michelle spoke. It has to be something, if you're wanting to implement any type of diversity, equity, and inclusion program, it has to be sincere and genuine. It can't be something just to check the box, and it has to be a commitment from the top down. Because if you don't have that commitment from the top down, it's not going to be authentic, and it's not going to be successful as you want it to be. You have to have people who are truly engaged in ensuring that you have a diverse, equitable, and inclusive culture, whether through your employees or your supplier base, because if not, it will not work if you're just doing it to check the box. And another thing I want to say real quick is utilize those agencies or those organizations that are what you're looking to incorporate in your diversity, equity, and inclusion program. We do a lot of benchmarking with our peer utilities, and we share best practices. We're a part of the SDDC, which allows us to work with the NMSDC local chapters, our state agencies. Make those connections, because they will help you in turn formalize what you might want your program to look like, because they all share best practices which you can incorporate in your program.
So Marisol, so you guys are, PSEG is doing their best to, mentor, companies to bring them to a level that is successful for them, successful for you. How do you then switch? So there's like a mindset of, there's specific goals on a project that I have to hire certain companies to make sure I'm meeting that goal? How do you switch from a mindset of I have to, tell this owner I'm working for that these are what I do, to switch to kind of like I want to have a type of program that I can easily fit into a diversity supplier, program itself. How do you switch from have to want to?
I think it's all in the message. And this is where I say it can't be something that you're doing to check the box, because that will be evident. Anyone who knows our company knows that we're very public serving. It's in our name, public service. We have a long, over 100-year history of serving our customers and our community. And diversity, and we've been doing supplier diversity specifically for 30 years now. So it's not something that we haven't been doing. But when you're looking to implement something like that, because we've done that, we've changed our contracting requirements to ensure that our suppliers that are coming in have a diversity component to the contract, and they have to come up with a plan for that. But we also help them with that. We review it, but it has to, they know that we genuinely care about our communities. We genuinely want our communities to represent us, and we want to give back and ensure that we're making an impact in our communities, so it's genuine. If it's genuine, it's not a hard ask for us to go to companies and say, hey, we have a goal of 30%. We'd like you to help us get to that goal by incorporating these things into your program. You'd be amazed at how many of our prime suppliers have adapted and brought on diverse suppliers, and they come to us when they have challenges. We problem solve, we think, we help them be creative in helping them meet their goals, because it's a partnership. We want them to succeed, and it benefits. So the overall arching benefit is greater than that small piece of you have to do this. So it's the bigger picture. And like I said, if the message and the action is consistent, and I say action because we can talk all we want about wanting to, impact our communities, but if we don't do it, people won't respect our company. And we've earned that respect over the last 30 years in what we've done.
Does you want to add anything to that?
I think that's a tough act to follow.
Okay, excellent. Michelle, Karen,
I think
a
that
good topic.
Well,
Switching.
yeah, and Marisol, you hit exactly what I was going to say before, which is the partnership part. Because if you don't have that direct link to the primes and really foster that relationship, we're even trying to go so far as, because we know that the average age of a skilled trade worker is mid-40s, and a lot are aging out or leaving the field. We found that with our underrepresented business enterprises that they, during the pandemic, when work was slow, some of their best workers that have been with them for years were being poached by prime contractors. So we're trying to look at every angle of this, and how do we make sure this isn't just a check the box, or yeah, you partner with this one and then tell us how it turns out at the end of the job. We want to make sure that not only we're creating these opportunities, but it's sustainable and they're growing, and that same way as you, how can we solve issues as they come up, or be proactive, and look at what is it we're trying to solve here. We're trying to build up more of a diverse, skilled workforce so that more people have opportunities in this, because a lot of times they don't realize what opportunities there are in the construction industry. And then also making sure that our business enterprises that are teamed up with primes have a chance at being successful. And we heard a lot of this through actually doing listening. We hadn't called focus groups together on some of our MWBEs in a long time. And we wanted to hear from them. What is it you want from us? And it was so interesting because some of them said, in New York, one said, I feel like an ant in the basement of the Empire State Building because you guys are so big and your primes are so big, and you really, do you really care about my work and my viability? And it really resonated because I'm like, because we thought as a team, yeah, this is what we need to do. We need to drill down and dig deep and make sure that we're not just, okay, you met the number, we're good. What's behind that, and what can we do better, improve as we move along? It's a continuous improvement process too.
Michelle, how about you? What's your-
All I can say is we just, we're in this work and we're trying so hard to make these inroads and to make these equitable opportunities accessible to folks. The construction industry obviously has a long-standing history in New Jersey, for not always being as inclusive as possible. But, we've taken great strides over these last few years, to really try to make these opportunities more accessible. We have, for instance, again, I talked about the public aspect of it, and having some of those barriers, true goals, with our offshore wind opportunity, we had to, we had to put some law into place. We had to stand up our own disparity study so that we could have goals on that project. We couldn't wait for the Treasury's, for the state's disparity study. They're in process with that, but we felt it was important that with this huge infrastructure project that's happening in New Jersey, that, in good conscience, how could we not make this as equitable as possible, to our XBEs? And so I think that, everyone's work here on this panel is reflective of just how serious and how hard, we try to make sure that we're doing as best as we can for the residents of New Jersey.
Gotcha. So kind of in light to switching from, have to want to, how about explain to the audience, from the heart, what does diversity add to a company? So, explain to them that this isn't just something to, say or do. It's the way it should be done. So kind of what value does diversity add to a company? Who wants to jump on that? Michelle, you want to touch that?
Sure. Yeah, sure. I will say that, it's an imperative because, a diverse workforce for us, again, is reflective directly in correlation and reflective of the public in the nation. I think we're number 4, is what the latest census data says. And so we, not a want to do or a need to do. I look at it as a have to do. I think that we particularly have responsibility to provide programs and services that foster equitable growth for the state. And how can we do that in with any sense of responsibility or sense of acknowledgement that these programs and services have to sustainably and equitably serve the community and the businesses of New Jersey. And those businesses and communities of New Jersey are diverse and of diverse backgrounds, of diverse affiliations, and of diverse sizes. EDA has been long known as the bank for the state because we do tax incentives, we do programs for larger corporations, but in recent years and under the current administration, under Governor Murphy's administration, he recognized that small businesses are the backbone to our society. And so we have a responsibility as a diverse workforce to foster that engagement. And you can't foster and you can't serve the people unless you know the people. And I believe that firmly. And to know the people, we have to be reflective of the people. So to me, it's an imperative. It's not even a nice to do, a want to do. It is, almost a rite of passage in order to serve the public.
Rob, what do you think? What value would you say that having diversity in a company adds to Princeton, to projects in general?
Yeah, perspective is a big component, I think, having just a variety of viewpoints from different types of people. So we recognize that, in our office right here, so our finance group in facilities, but on our large capital projects too. So on the design teams, especially, we get a lot of interesting perspectives when we have a more diverse group at the table. Opportunity is a big component of how we add diversity to our work at Princeton. So one of the very early metrics that we identified as probably one of the more important ones is just promoting opportunities for diverse suppliers and diverse people to work at universities. So during the hiring practice, our HR department has a very established sort of goal, I guess. It's not really a requirement, but a goal to just have a more diverse group of applicants for many positions. And then that's the same on our facilities, on our design and construction side. The diverse participation in our competitive procurement. So when we're soliciting architects and engineers, multiple trades in the construction industry, GCs and CMs, opportunity is a big piece of that, because we've definitely seen that the more opportunities that we have for diverse suppliers to do business with the university, the more successful they are in actually winning work and then being successful on those projects when they get them. And in those situations for, Turner and some of the other large CMs that we deal with on our capital projects, they've been excellent partners in helping us with that, because there's not always the opportunity for our direct suppliers to be diverse on the large projects, especially, but they are filtering down so much work that, like I think Marisol mentioned, that they have, subcontracting or diverse plans that they have to submit. We have the same requirement, and we don't have requirements on that either, but we do have goals, and they are doing an excellent job of meeting those, just because I think they have to, really identify opportunities for diverse subcontractors and suppliers on these projects. So the more opportunities, we're seeing a lot more benefit and sort of a diverse pool of people and suppliers at Princeton.
Gotcha. Anyone else want to add? Go ahead, Liz.
I'd like to jump in. So from an economic standpoint, it's very important, if you're a large prime or CM, to find ways to to make yourself stand out in the field, right? To make yourselves differentiate yourself when you're bidding, because at a certain point, there's, most of the large primes have solid workforce. They're going to deliver an amazing product. But how are you going to make yourself stand out from the field? And, a shout out to the primes who are on right now. I mean, Jingoli is really known for the Competitive Edge program, bringing, going out into the community and bringing young men and women into internship programs and into apprenticeships, and getting them started on the path to the middle class that we talk about at MBDI. And Turner has for a long time had education programs as well. So we at MBDI work we've worked quite a bit with Jingoli as well. We really try to help the larger firms understand that by showing that you've got this deep commitment, not just, oh yeah, we have a DE&I program or whatever, but if you show that you've got a deep commitment and you're really carrying the water, you're going to look differently. And I know of the large primes who have specifically won projects because of their commitment to showing that they're walking the walk.
And let me flip that a second. So large primes, they have resources, right? So a lot of the organizations that belong to PWC are smaller. How do they then, what would be your advice on how they flip themselves up to being able to kind of attract themselves to that GC to say, hey, I can help you meet these goals? What would be your advice on that?
I'd love to step in because that's what we do. We help the smaller firms who are getting going and who aren't quite project ready. or who are project ready for smaller projects, but not quite ready to grow and move on to the next level to do that. So that's really key. And, you know, it all, when you're in public procurement or on bonded projects, the big thing is you have to qualify for bonding and you have to keep growing your bond line. And that is no joke. It's not just like applying for insurance and, you know, paying a premium. You have to dig deep and create a really strong financial presentation. You've got to have a strong system of internal accounting. You've got to have the construction CPA who's creating financials that the surety wants to see. You need to have the back office operations that show that you are capable of handling the paperwork, handling the invoices, doing the payroll, certified payroll, all that. And that takes a lot of work. So there's a big difference between being really good in the field and doing a great job on a project and actually being able to boost yourself to the point where you can handle the requirements that the large primes, the agencies, the universities need to have to keep the projects running smoothly. So it's really important to work to build your capacity, to find those training programs that are going to help you to sign up, to do the work, and to continually improve yourself.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I think that's one of the misperceptions, you know, when we run a Turner School of Construction Management, you know, sometimes we'll get so many people that sign up for it. And I think it's a good way. You know, a lot of them look at it as an introduction. I just, you know, want to come in and learn. But a lot, I think, come away with an expectation that means that they're ready to get a job and be, just hit the ground running. And there's a lot more that goes into it. And so we're even taking the approach of how do we look at it differently, and our outreach becomes more focused and really looking at how do you mentor and shepherd that small firm. So I think trying to close that expectation gap of, because I'm a minority woman-owned firm, that I should just have this opportunity, but also knowing what you need and everything that it needs to be in place before. Surety is a big one, and the challenges we find from these small firms too, I think, is something that we all have to work on. How do we overcome some of these challenges that they have, that maybe they have the capital, but they're just haven't been in business long enough, or they don't have a CPA, or they don't even know what they need. I think that's something that is an industry we need to figure that out and do better, because I see where there is that expectation gap that we've got to all work hard to close.
It's almost like we need an organization or something out there that just kind of like is available for people to contact, to kind of just pick your brain. Someone in the audience actually said, is anyone willing to let me email them to kind of ask specific questions on D&I and getting things started. So I don't know if that's something anyone is willing. We're not going to give out emails right now, but so I see Michelle is saying yes. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, yeah, I just got over one of our annual supplier diversity fairs virtually. So this is something that I'm constantly out and about talking about and helping and answering emails. And if I don't have the answer, I will find the answer for you. A lot of times I'm very honest. I will not waste anyone's time. If we don't have a service or need that your company supplies, I will be honest. So that way nobody's feelings get hurt when it's a year and a half down the road and you still haven't heard anything, right? But I am here to serve. I am here to help. This is what I do. I don't do it because I want to. I do it because I love it. I switched careers because I know the importance of diversity and inclusion as a Puerto Rican woman my entire life, coming from Newark, New Jersey. So it is something that I take seriously and personally. One thing I just want to go back to, and I just want to say that one of the benefits of having diversity and inclusion in your company is, in addition to the different thoughts and perspectives, it also builds trust in that entity. If I know that I am working for a company, which I'm grateful that I am, that takes diversity, equity, and inclusion seriously, and it's a core value, and they have everything in place to ensure that everyone can come to work being their authentic selves and be seen and heard, speaks volumes. And if we can take that same feeling and put it into our communities and ensure that they know that we see them, we hear them, we're working to help develop the communities we're in, that is just, there's no monetary value you could put on that. So that's also another benefit of diversity and inclusion in my eyes.
So are there like training programs, is there courses someone can take to kind of, better prepare their company to meet some of these supplier diversity goals, to be well-rounded as a company? What about that?
Well,
Go ahead.
if I can jump in, that's what MVDI does. We're not running any programs presently in New Jersey, but we have worked with the EDA before, and we've worked with the city of Newark. We're working with various entities in New Jersey right now, or I'm sorry, in New York right now, where COVID has, muddied the mix a little bit. But we focus on the deep financial, operational, financial presentation building, which is different than a lot of the other programs. Turner's got a great program, doesn't dive as deeply as we do, because we find that so many times contractors, that's a really big chasm to cross for a lot of firms, and they really need a lot of hand holding and a lot of work. So that's kind of our differentiator, is that we really help to do the deep dive to help, get ready for the bonding and to build the bond program.
So some of you actually have, supplier diversity certifications under their belts, so that to me is some, more of like an upper management kind of thing. Maybe talk about that, or is there anything for, folks that are lower down on the ladder? Is there something that they could be taking in terms of classes or certifications?
So I'll say I got my certification just when we started really thinking about this program at Princeton about 5 or 6 years ago, which is all too recent, given that there's a lot more history with other firms, especially on this panel. But it was a great jumpstart for me just to really get some more information, a lot of information right off the bat. It's also great for continuing, to promote continuing education, and that, to maintain your certification, you have to participate in panels like these and have to, other seminars and classes and things like that. If you've been actively, participating in diversity and inclusion in your firm, it's probably not that necessary because it's a lot of the same information. But if you're just starting out, I think it is a good thing to look into.
Okay, excellent. And now, what do you think is good advice for companies? So what do you think companies need to improve the most when promoting diversity? So what do you kind of see pitfalls? Michelle, looks like you maybe want to jump on that.
There's, I guess, there are, the pitfalls can be many. So let's put it that way, but I don't want to, dwell in, what could be not so good. I think that, when we're talking diversity in general, or supplier diversity in particular, I think that, some of the pitfalls we can fall into is just, doing it for doing its sake, you know what I mean? And not being, committed to the end goals of what, the organization values as diversity. So, for all of us here, we have just a passion and a vested interest in what we're doing, as in the construction industry, we have a passion to bring folks into the fold, to mentor and to develop and to, see these businesses through, right? And so I think that has to shine and gleam its way to the top. It has to be that, you're doing this because you have an end goal in mind, right? It can't be just because you need to have diversity on the website and it looks good. So I think that if we start there and we trickle down from that notion, then I think that a lot of the other things that can be potential barriers, you find a way around those barriers because you're still at top of mind is to see these companies through to the end.
And I think the other thing too is that you have to look inside yourself. That to me is the diversity and inclusion within your walls. But then also, what does that look like outside on the project sites? And that was a big shift for us last year, was that there was a really big uptick in bias motivated events, hate signs, verbal abuse. And it really comes from the top down. Our president and CEO said, no more, no more. Let's, everybody should feel safe coming to work. I thought of it in terms of, you go in, you're a guest in somebody's house. Would you go into their bathroom and deface their bathroom? We all deserve respect every day. And that, I think Marisol, you said about building trust. That's where it starts. And so every single project, we have a hotline and you can call in they do training on the job site when an event happens, but we've even stopped projects. We've offered rewards for, giving information on how it was initiated. And it's hard work. And it's, because now you're going outside the walls and you're trying to change the industry in a big way. And now we have other companies, other construction companies that have formed this consortium, Time for Change, because you shouldn't have to go to a Turner job site, to another contractor, or to a Princeton University and have a totally different experience. You should feel like you are, welcome. You are an important part of that building or whatever that work is, and that you go home not just physically safe, but you're not mentally distracted, because we were actually able to align the fact that if there's distractions on the site, that leads to more physical injuries. So, it makes business sense too. Yes, it feels great to be in a job site where that is taken seriously, that we will not tolerate hate and racism, and we call it in our house. But the other part of it is, this is also makes the business case that you want every worker, we've said this for years, live injury-free every day, but you should also live injury-free mentally so that you can, go home safe and sound. And I think it's important that the industry take, whether you're a large prime or you're a small contractor, if we always say, see something, say something, because it's been taken seriously a lot more than I've ever seen it. And every single project has the opportunity to call out an event and try to make it safer for everyone on that project. And that to me is a big shift.
Excellent. All right, so we're going to switch to questions from the audience right now. And if we have time, we can kind of regroup on some of the other questions I had. So Margot, would you kind of take the reins and ask some of these great questions that came through?
Sure. So the first one I'll ask is from Angelica. She says that she has about 15 years in the construction industry as a female construction superintendent. She has only encountered 2 other female supers in passing. She says during discussions, it appears that the intimidation of this position and the environment prevents more women from exploring this career option. She asks, within some of your organizations, how do you guys encourage diversity and inclusion amongst those non-traditional and possibly field-focused career paths?
Michelle, it seems like you're popping your head.
Yeah, I will say that this is a, I take this question very personally because, again, I lean on the fact that we're a public facing agency and we have a responsibility to make sure that, there are programming that is out there that fosters this equitable inclusion. We do have affirmative action laws, right? We do have laws that we can fall back on and that we should be enforcing. So that's the laws exist for a reason. Enforcement is another, that's another matter. So, from our perspective at EDA, we are, working very closely with Department of Labor to ensure that we have affirmative action goals on projects and that we are enforcing those goals. But above and beyond that, I think that there needs to be a concerted effort between with our organized labor unions to look to try to foster career development and further engagement there. And we're looking to actively, we're actually in collaboration with the unions, and I'm giving a notice to all the folks on the panel that we'll be reaching out to each and every one of you because we need your engagement and your support and your involvement to really move the needle here, because that is absolutely a fact that we need to see more women in these roles. These are roles that are good paying roles, career opportunities that we see as economic development and spurring of our economy. So, it's not falling on dead ears. We are aware that, there's a need there that exists, and it's a long-standing need that exists. And so we are looking for ways actively to engage and to involve these unions to really to step up.
How about Liz or Marisol? You have something to share to that? Okay. How about the next one, Margot?
So the next one is from Rob, and they ask, what can we do to make sure that diversity, equity, and inclusion programs or initiatives stay sustainable and do not fade 5 to 10 years from now?
Well, I can start off the discussion because that's one of the things that, we are very attuned to, because I think, last year with the opportunities to really bring more resources to this and do more around not just diversity, inclusion, equity, but how do we sustain it? Because a lot of people were skeptical. They're like, okay, we've seen this before. What are we doing differently? And this time around, we formed what we call an inclusion action committee, which was all of our, a swath of line side profit and loss people that are helping us to navigate what areas do we need to really reinforce so that we don't lose this momentum that we have. And it came, there were things that came out. So I would say, first and foremost, you start with what data you have. So we looked at demographics of the company. We also looked at, training. What training are people getting? We looked at our performance management systems. So everything from past performance to, ultimate potential in your career. And from that, we developed what we call intentional actions. And that's around a diversity action plan that goes down to like business unit, and ultimately we want to take that to project level and make sure that every job site has something in place. And you really, the accountability for that rests with the leader in that particular business unit. So it's not just doing the things, but it's putting some accountability. And the next thing we're looking at is the reward system for this, because, I heard a lot of, like, well, this feels like extra work, or we're taking people off their line positions and putting them in this. But again, it has to start at the very top with reinforcing the message. This is important. This is our future. We're not sitting back. We're moving forward. We're even putting metrics in front of us to say, here's our goal, that in 10 years we want to, look like the communities, every place that we build. and you have to keep reinforcing it, reinforcing doing, and you have to like keep looking and making sure that the problems you've actually put out there are being solved, because it's going to create new things that you're going to have to work through that you don't even see today. And that to me is the most pivotal change that I've seen, is that you don't just put a committee in place, you look forward and you say, okay, here's what we're going to work toward. And we know we're going to have bumps. We know we're going to have to change some things around, but here's our goals.
Okay. What about Marisol? What are your thoughts? How do we keep DE&I, going?
It's having a plan in place and ensuring that you continue to look at that plan and tweak it as necessary. If it's something that is truly embedded in your culture, it's something that's going to be easy to maintain going forward. So just from our company perspective, DEI is on our enterprise scorecard, right? And one thing that I want to mention is you don't know how well you're doing unless you measure it, right? So it's on our enterprise scorecard. It is a compensable goal. It is in our sustainability report that goes out publicly. So not only are we making the commitment internally, but we're also letting you know externally, this is our focus. This is what we are working on. I work closely with the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in our company because of the fact that supplier diversity is such an integral part of our overall DEI plan. And it has to be something that it's communicated. We have metrics around it. We measure how well we're doing in various aspects. On the employee side, the Office of DEI is very good on their employee engagement survey. They've restructured the model of our Diversity and Inclusion Council to what they now call local inclusion teams, which is what I lead for procurement, which is a more tailored approach in addressing those concerns that are really specific to the lines of business. Not every line of business has the same concerns. So we really tailor it to be able to develop the culture within our department and also within our organization. On a supplier diversity, and there's metrics around that. And then on the supplier diversity side, we have metrics coming out of our eyeballs, because we want to ensure that we are truly doing what we say we're going to do. So right now, well, not right now, like last year, late 2019, early 2020, we said, all right, we're going to have an aggressive goal of being 30% by 2023. I think if we haven't met it this year, we're going to definitely meet it next year, because we were at 29 point something as of last month. When I came in, I didn't have visibility. Because I asked the question, well, how many diverse suppliers do we bring on yearly? And nobody could give me that answer. So I developed the metric. Let's see how many new diverse suppliers we bring in. So in 2019, my goal was 45. We brought in over 50. This year, my goal was 60, and we already brought in over 100. So, it's having a plan in place that's going to allow you to be sustainable 5, 10, 15 years from now, and tweaking it as necessary.
I'd say that's actually one of the advantages of how challenging this is that it's a constant effort. So there's not like a problem that we can solve in a year and walk away and say, we did it, we're good, and just hope it just maintains itself. But because it's so challenging, because like Marisol said, you set metrics or goals or requirements, and you meet them, and then you increase them. So you're just trying to, build on that. So I think that's important too, is just to, recognize that it's a continuing effort, that it's not a problem that can be solved. It's something that's got to be addressed repeatedly.
Mm-hmm. And it gets harder as you go along. I mean, you really have to get super creative when you're trying to do these stretch goals, especially when you've had a program for so long. But we're doing it. It's working. And it's because everybody in our company truly has this passion. I can't do my job without our entire enterprise and without Dr. Izzo. So everybody is on board with this because we understand the importance of it.
Liz, anything you can add about, keeping this
Yeah,
going?
about sustainability of DE&I programs and continuing to focus. I think one thing that is often overlooked is training the people down the line more in bias, because Karen, the hate crimes you were talking about that are happening on the job and the harassment that occurs on such a regular basis and in construction quite a bit as well. It's really important to, I think, to not just say, no, that can't happen, which is absolutely has to happen, has to come from the top, but also help address the bias on the line. Now, I think about this as how it can be successful when I look at my kids and their peers and how they've been exposed to much more inclusion and how they can't even understand how some of these things can happen. But that doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens when people are exposed to the notion of bias, how it can be changed, how you can not be a blame game, you're awful, but like accepting it, looking at it and making it something that's discussed more so that those things can be less organic and and organic change can happen from the bottom up as well as from the top down.
Excellent. All right, Margot, I think you said we have another question out there.
Yep, our one more question is from Kareem. They ask, what do you all think about second chance programs, and do any of your DEI programs or initiatives focus on that specifically?
We have particularly in workforce development that we're running in different places. It really came to our attention out in California with a program that they project staff actually engaged with Second Call and were able to bring them into some of the self-perform operations that we're doing out there, particularly in concrete. And then in Kansas City, one of our project managers actually, was working with a federal judge. And the beauty of this is it's not a program per se, but he's actually vetting people as they are coming back into society that just need a chance and just need an opportunity. And the beauty of this, it's not like big numbers. I mean, I think we were up to 3 last time I checked in that we've gotten through this process that we have with this judge. And but what's really remarkable is the head of our self-perform operation out there said that they're the best 3 workers that start out as laborers and then can go into carpentry or concrete, best 3 hires that they've had. And I think, when you start saying, going from have to want to, that's the kind of success stories that you want to hear. And like I said, we're not at big numbers yet, but we've realized the value and through some of the workforce development work that we've done on some of our projects. I went to a graduation out in Omaha where it wasn't through Second Call, but it was just going through the community organizations. And our lofty goal is we want to get 30 people in this program. We ended up graduating 9. But going to the graduation, the ripple effect of those 9 was incredible. One of the guys that was going into sheet metal work, and this was an accelerated program, by the way, that we did with community college help. His whole family was there and they were cheering him on. And this was a guy that had been, in a gang. He had been shot in the stomach. He had been incarcerated, and he just wanted a chance. And his family, his extended family was there. And my words to them were like, look, you're the future. This is this is an indication of where you can go. And we were able to not successfully, or I mean, just not successfully have them on that job, but now they have a sustainable career. They're going on to other projects, working for other general contractors. We had a woman that was living in a car, and she said, just very pointedly, I just needed somebody to give me a chance to an opportunity. So, you know, I think it's really relevant. I think you have to dig down. I think you can't expect that you're going to have like our initial thing of let's put 1,000 people to work and get, you know, tool belts on but just the ripple effect of just starting somewhere has been incredible. And so, you know, we're going to continue down that path and hopefully have more success into the future too with that. It's a really, really good question. It's so important to not overlook people that are coming out of being incarcerated.
Excellent. Anybody have anything else to add on that?
I would like to add, in general, there's such a huge issue with coming out of prison. If you've had a felony, getting any sort of work. And it's got to be examined. I mean, if you look at Black Americans are incarcerated at nearly 5 times the rate of white Americans. And if we're looking to build a diverse workforce, we really have to look at this issue and not, you know, earmark everybody who's been to prison as unemployable and not safe, because it's really not the case. As you can see just from this, you know, a couple of case studies, it's really just not the case. So talking about this again, I keep saying, like, talk about it loudly, talk about it widely, because there has to be legislative change. There has to be change in hiring practices, and it really has to go deep if we're going to recognize the goal of having equitable workforces.
It's excellent. All right, Margot, is that it from the audience?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, excellent. All right, so I got kind of, you know, just with our organization in mind, how can you, if I wanted to ask how our individual member companies can get work with you folks, Rob, what's a key factor in how to, you know, get a job with you guys?
Yeah, you know, registering as a supplier, that's the easy answer, but there's obviously a lot more than that goes into it. I think reaching out to, you know, the client that you're trying to do business with is important. Not only just going through the registration process, but specifically identifying, you know, what your wheelhouse is. I think Marisol said before, you know, it's important that what you do fits with what we're looking to do, you know, and we don't want to waste your time. You don't want to waste our time. If there's not going to be, you know, the right type of work here for you, you know, it's not going to work. So I think identifying, you know, what size or type of work you do is very important. And then just, you know, continuing checking in, because it's unlikely that, you know, when you reach out to us, we're going to have the perfect fit project for you at that time. You know, I tell everybody that, you know, emails or calls me, you know, email and call me a month from now or 2 months from now. Keep bugging me. That's literally my job, is to find suppliers. And in some cases, you know, diverse suppliers too. So bug me. That's absolutely acceptable. And we understand you're trying to find business, and we're trying to find people to do that work for us. So I think, yeah, just, you know, identifying, you know, and matching your skills with who you're trying to do work for is very important.
Now, is that something on your website? They would have a means of contacting you, or is registration on your website, or what does that look like?
Yep, it takes a little bit of work for Princeton. You know, our information is all public, so you can easily, you know, search for us. If you just Google Princeton University facilities or design and construction, you know, you'll go through a page or two, but you can find contact information for our group. And if you reach out to somebody, usually if it's not the right person, they'll pass you along to who they think is the right person. So it may take a little bit of effort, but, you know, keep at it. If you really want to do business with a client, you know, reach out to them through multiple means if possible.
Marisol, what about with you folks? Yeah.
So great response, Rob, because you pointed a lot of things that I wanted to say, but so we have a lot of information on our supplier diversity program on the pscg.com/supplier diversity. We do have a supplier portal, which I highly recommend that if you ever wish to do business with our company, you register there, because that is the first place our line of business clients go to look if for diverse suppliers, or any supplier, if we're looking to do business with a supplier. So that's very critical. One thing that I want to point out is, if, like Rob said, if you have multiple services that you provide, hone in on those ones that you do really well, because that's really what's going to set you apart. If you have the opportunity to be in front of any PSCG procurement person or a line of business or anyone, perfect that elevator pitch. Many times you don't have more than a couple of minutes, 10 minutes to be able to really make your company stand out. So make sure that you have that perfected, where we're going to say, oh yeah, I remember speaking to this company. One thing that I always say to our diverse suppliers is, like I said, I'll be honest, if we don't have the service or category need, I'll let you know up front, and then you can stay in our database should there ever be a need. And also, when my peer companies are looking for diverse suppliers, I use the same information to share with the other utilities that I'm good, that I work with, and also some of our primes. They come to me regularly with, hey, we need a diverse supplier in this category. And I'm like, oh, I have one, and I send it off to them. So always make sure that your information is complete. Attend diversity fairs. As cumbersome as they may be, attend diversity fairs. This is where you're going to get the opportunity to come face to face with, the individuals that you want to make connections with. Make those connections, but one thing that I'm going to say is, do not be rude. Unfortunately, I had an experience where I had to get senior leadership involved because they bypassed me and went all the way to Dr. Izzo, and they were very rude. You don't want to shoot yourself in the foot. Like, develop that relationship and check in. I always say once a quarter. We'll let you know if there's any opportunities. We're very good about that. And for those who did not attend our supplier diversity fair, there's a whole list of categories that we're looking for in the next 12 to 18 months, which unfortunately, we were able to meet with some suppliers during our fair, but I'm sure that there's many that did not attend that we would love to be able to connect with. So please, I will be more than happy to share that flyer again and those list of categories, because there's opportunities, and understand that it doesn't happen overnight. One of the things is you have to have realistic expectations. It takes us, believe it or not, 12 to 18 months to onboard a vendor. It sounds crazy, but there's a lot that goes on between them, depending on the project. Some may happen quickly, some may not, but just have realistic expectations. But definitely register on the supplier portal. Make sure all your information is accurate, contact information, diversity classifications, anything. And if you get an email from anyone asking you for information, please respond. Do not assume that you will get back to us at a later time, because by then you will have missed your opportunity, your window opportunity. So that's just some key things that I've come across where I've struggled with some suppliers, and I'm like, oh, we were somebody we were considering, but you didn't respond to us. So it's just like, just respond. And yeah, that's that.
Okay, excellent. Well, I think that kind of concludes our panel discussion. It was wonderful. Kind of some of the takeaways I have. I really loved, the definition that diversity is. You're being asked to be invited. The inclusion part is you're actually being asked to dance. And then the equity piece is you actually feel like you should be dancing. So I kind of like that. I like that actions speak louder than words. Make sure that you're contacting the client, you're staying engaged. So these are all such great takeaways. I really appreciate everyone's time. I appreciate the audience's time. this was an educational series that the Professional Women in Construction kind of puts on. So I think this was a great one. And I thank you all. And for all of our members who attended today, I just want to kind of point out that we have a complimentary member-only holiday party on December 7th at Hudson Hall in Jersey City. So a save the date email is going to be coming out. And I encourage, we're always looking for wonderful people to be involved in our organization. We're actually looking to, expand our board soon. So some of you panelists out there, it's a great opportunity to make a difference and really kind of touching the smaller firms out there as well as the larger GCs on a impactful basis. So that's just my little take. But anyway, thank you everyone for attending. Really appreciate it, and have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody.